In this video, we're going to strictly talk about the scoreboard, which is the section of the sheet, which is this part right here. What you're going to do after you have entered in all of your promises for the week, which is the yellow section, you're going to start entering in the actuals for each week thereafter. So based on the reporting date that you've entered, you will enter in the actuals against the promises that you've made. So for example, this particular week, the access to power game had a promise of 12. So let's say you had 10, all right? And then the power to create, let's say you did have 10. The team 1 game you had 0. The team 2 game you had 0. For the game in the world, let's say you had 58%. And then for the landmark forum, you have 1. All right, so what this does is this actually fills out the sheet for you based on the reporting date and the week that it's actually looking at, and will give you your promises. And it will give you the results of your promises. The results of your promises are 83% for your access to power. It is 100% for your power to create, 104% for your game in the world, and the landmark forum is 50% with an overall promise of 56%. That is where you're going to stand inside of what's the gap between 56% and 100%, and then you can look at the individual games and start playing for that. Inside of that also, you will see that you will get your current team effectiveness rating. When looking at the sheet, you're going to also notice that all these cells have now turned purple, which means there's something that is unreconciled on the sheet. So let's start with the game in the world, because the game in the world actually comes from the class list. So you're going to go to the class list and you're going to look at what you entered for the effectiveness for your team. So you'll see that everybody is filled out, okay, and then on top of that you're going to see that the actual effectiveness rating, or the effectiveness of this game, is 60%, not 58%. So based on that, you're going to go back to the current weekly stats and you're going to put in 60, and that will now clear that to have the cell go green, which means that that is now complete. All right. For the access to power to create Team 1 and Team 2 games, you're going to actually enter in the information that you need on the CAP and CPC course info page. So we're going to start with the access to power and the power to create games first. For the access to power game, we actually said that we had 35 is what we started with, but we now have 10 new registrations. So this is going to be 45, and this is going to be 45, and what you're going to notice is that these numbers down here changed to 10 and 10. You're going to come down to these cells and you're going to have 25, and we said we had 10 of those, so now we have 35, and then this is 19, but we're going to add 10 to that, which is 29, which is 10, 10 here, and 10 here. So if we go back to the current weekly stats page, you'll see that these cells have now turned green because they are now consistent with what actually the access to power and the power to create games are entered as on the CAP and CPC course info page. Now, it's time to start looking at what it is that you currently have on your team. For example, what we have is we have 4 registrations, okay, for Team 1. And if you'll look here for Team 1, it'll show you what your total is. Okay, so here is the number of people who are currently registered into Team 1 coming into a future weekend, whether it is the first weekend or the second weekend. All right, so we have 3 coming into the May weekend and we have 1 coming into the August weekend. No applications are approved. So we will go back to the CAP and CPC course info page, and on this tab you're going to enter 3 and 0, which means we have 3 people registered, none are approved. Down in the future Team 1, which will be the August weekend, you will enter a 1 and you will enter a 0, and that will show that there is 1 person currently registered but none approved. And you'll see that the total is 0 and 0. Once that's there, you go back and you'll see now that this has actually been cleared. So this is where you're going to be going each time. When it comes to Team 2, you're going to be looking at Team 2. You have one application that is in and awaiting to be approved, and then you have one that is out, not yet in, to the center. But there are two applications, one in the current quarter and one in the future quarter. So you come down to the team 2 and you're going to put a 1 because we have one registration for the upcoming weekend and we have 0 approved. Then we have 1 in the future weekend with 0 approved. And that's going to show you when we do this that we have 0 and 0 again, and that will go back to the current weekly stats. And now all of your sheets are reconciled. There's one thing that I do want to point out here. This this orange cell, I say purple when I mean orange every time. The orange cell, that is telling you that this application is out of integrity. It is 72 days old. All right, so there is a gap between the time that the application went out and the time the application came in. After 45 days, that application cell will turn orange in the withdraw column, saying that this application is way out of integrity and it's time to look and see whether or not this is going to be an application that is a viable application. This will happen for both the application going from out to in. It will also have the application being from in to approved. So anything that goes over 45 days in either one of those processes will turn the withdraw column orange.